Afrika, mwili wa jua, mwili wa anga, tuifanye Afrika mti wa uzima. I will now take a reading from the book Peace Building and Peace Studies in a Globalized World by Egon Spiegel and Liu Cheng. And the title is The Angel of Mediation, Reconciliation by an Angel, a work of art from the Middle Ages. In the Boston Museum of Fine Art, you can see a remarkable painting by Bana da Siena, an Italian artist who created this work of art around 1340 ACE. The picture's title is The Mystical Marriage of St. Catherine. Our special interest is not with the main subject, but with a section of the lower part of the canvas. We have circled it by a green ring on the left and enlarged it on the right. In this part of the picture, the artist portrays the act of reconciliation of two hostile parties represented by a black and a white warrior. They have put down the weapons and are hugging each other, we may say quasi-tenderly. In fact, seems as if they are kissing one another. Behind the two warriors, there is an angel. He's larger than life size, which indicates that he's a third and not comparable with the two soldiers. The angel is a being of another quality. However, the angel brings the parties together, connects both, just as his wings are stretched over both. The movements of the warriors reflect the form of the wings as they are linked in the center, in a holy center, expressed by a golden halo. The weapons dropped to the ground are all pointing outward and downward. The medieval painting focuses on the medieval painting focuses on the result of a process that is based on the work of the angel. Thus, from this perspective, peace on the basis of reconciliation is the work of a third, the result of a miraculous mediation. This artwork is a marvelous illustration of the time-independent experience that is a stronger power bringing people together, even if they are enemies. Thus, rather than black and white causing a war through their differences, unity supersedes diversity. Thank you very much for listening. Welcome to Global Peace Studies for Sustainable Development in Africa, where we discuss pertinent issues of peace and sustainability all over the world and across Africa. It's a pleasure having you all today. Thank you for joining Global Peace. And we have a special honor today of having Professor Laeed Zaghlami, who probably also maybe needs no introduction. He has been with us here before and is a regular participant. So it's a pleasure having you, our brother, Laeed.
Thank you.
And yes, he's from the Algiers University, the third, from Algeria. And is a professor of communications or media studies, and recently was in Russia as an Algerian observer to that election. So it's really a pleasure and honor having you to lead us in this important discussion today, which is Russian elections from African and the rest of the world's perspective. This is really timely, as it is crucial. And so I welcome one and all. And I would like to ask Professor Laeed Zaghlami If you want to start by sharing a screen or doing it later, it's just up to you. So just feel free to do as you wish. And I hope, of course, this is going to be an interactive session. He's going to present his own overview perspective, and then we can also present ours. Here at Global Peace, nobody is right and no one is wrong. We are all learning from one another. So this is really marvelous. So thank you so much, all of you, and welcome, Professor Laeed Zaghlami.
Thank you, George, for having me once again in your program. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Great. So I'm so pleased and excited to be on your program for today. And as you just mentioned in the introduction, I was lucky and even fortunate to be a member of the International Observer for the election in Russia from the 12th of March to the 20th. And of course, it was very exciting for me. And more importantly, when I was selected, when I was chosen, I felt very excited. So here I am presenting some slides regarding my modest experience. And to start with, of course, we have to ask why I was chosen. And as a professor, as a professional, media professional, as well as professor at university, I have been writing extensively and spoken about in the media, about in Arabic, in French, and English language on these international issues, on the present situation in the world. More than that, I am independent from political parties, as well as I feel humbly a public figure in Algerian society. And I think this is on the basis of that I was chosen by members and observer of the Russian election committee. Just some reminders for facts of Russian election. Russian election is, first of all, the superficie of Russia is 17 million kilometers square. And if you are in Moscow, we have 10 hours difference time between different regions of the country. 141 million inhabitants, 112 million were registered, and the polling station were evaluated to 95,000 for the whole Russian region of 89, plus the Republic of Donetsk, as well as Lugansk. And of course, following the result of September 22, those two republics have joined the Russian Republic, as well the province of Kherson and Zaporizhia, which integrate the Russian Federation. That's what is already known. President Putin faced the three rivals in that election. We have Leonid Slutsky, we have Nikolai Kharitonov, Vladislav Davantov, and of course, there are the three contenders for the president. The result, as you knew already, have shown that President Putin, of course, the results have shown that President Putin was the winner of the election with 87.29%, and Nikolai Kharitonov from the Communist Party came in second position with 4.3%. Having said about the result, now let's make it on this side of observer. Actually, the figures show that 1,000 of observers came from over 100 countries to monitor the election. Well, this is a response to those who cast doubt about them. My humble self, I was assigned to Kherson province, which is about 1,700 kilometers from Moscow, in company with a representative from USA, from France, from Germany, from Zambia, South Africa, Botswana, Mexico, and Tanzania. When it comes to the electoral agenda, so we reached the Kherson region after a stopover in Rostov, and then we landed in Crimea on Wednesday, on the eve of the election. Next day, which means on Thursday, we had a short meeting and briefing with the governor of Kherson. Afterwards, we started working and investigating polling station in different parts of the region. And of course, we had the discussion with local authorities as well as voters. So this is my comment from when I was interviewed by local television in the city of Genishchisk, Tavria. I said that I shared my impression that the election process in that has shown a high level of organization and the positive attitude of local residents at polling station. More than that, I would say they were really very excited. So I visited in company to my team. While I was member of the team, I would say many polling stations in the Kherson area, as well as we came to the conclusion really, and that's what it's my own impression that there is a desire and the enthusiasm of local residents to demonstrate their civic position now no bounds. I also noticed that there was no violence or violation of any standard during the vote, and that election campaign was fully complying with international standard. More than that, the things I would say they are respecting the rules and the standard discretion, respect no violation of any kind. This secrecy was also respecting the vote. There was different boxes and the box was sealed off, etc. So I would say the election went, the voting process went quite well. And I will show you later on this link if we can do it. Okay, I will do it later on. So my assumption that in this year, 2024, nearly 4 billion people, which is around 60 to 60% of the population of the world, will vote to determine their future in should be a democratic and sovereign manner. In other words, what I saw in Russia, I saw people very enthusiastically expressing their desire to restore peace and security. They also showed their personal commitment to ensure a prosperous future for their community. The outcome, as I said, the outcome as the emanation of the will of the individual, and therefore their choice must be respected. I would say each country has the right to determine its own future on its own terms and rules, as long as the will of the voter is respected. And the good example, and the recent example, is what happened in Senegal. Senegal is a beautiful and pertinent example that a young energetic person who was a few weeks ago jailed. Once released, he got the popularity, and he was now he is appointed president. He's, I think, about to be sworn in shortly. So, in other words, worst values in democracy, press freedom, election, and so on are no more the reference. And this is what I have really found out. Why? Because Western values in terms, as I said, of democracy have not been anymore the reference. And there are some facts and examples. French essayist Emmanuel Todd wrote just about two months ago a book called The Defeat of the West. Former French Prime Minister Dominique de Villepin spoke of the media and cosmetic democracy in Europe, in Western countries, and in France particularly. His French Foreign Minister Hubert Védrine said once that the Western values are no more the value, are no more the reference. They are no more. They have no more the monopoly, and therefore there are so many examples where people are now looking for different values which are more representative and reflecting their own, I would say, specificity and particularity. The example of right now of the one-side approach in the war, the fully support of Russia, of Western country to the war to Ukraine is subject to criticism, and we should interrogate them. We should ask for at least that the two countries, Russia and Ukraine, go to the table of negotiation and this conflict peacefully. Also, what is amazing is the blind support and the complicity of the West for Israel genocide in Gaza. And just yesterday and 2 days ago, Israeli have bombarded the hospital, Shafa hospital, and they left it in an ocean of bubbles. More than that, they even bombarded and attacked this kitchen. It's incredible. This no governmental organization and this caritative organization just provide food. They were even bombarded. And when asked, they said, no, we didn't do it intentionally. So it's clear that the West is supporting blindly Israel and does not help. And that's why I think ultimately, and as a result of that, we are witnessing and watching the sign of a new real tendency, the West versus the rest of the world. And I think, to my conclusion, I would say the dominant Western political, economic, and financial system inherited for the end of the World War II has come to an end. We have to admit that. The West should now refrain from interfering, from dictating, from intervening, from imposing its values and its rules and standards, which are no more the reference. So the need for a fairer, more peaceful, and safer world lies in the respect of people, their independence, their sovereignty, and of course, they decide by themselves. And as I said, we are seeing the beginning of the end of this Western value dominance with the appearance of a new great power. And of course, I think the world will be more peaceful if we have a multipolar approach. And of course, maybe a lady from IMF, Christina Georgieva, IMF, she's complaining or she's regretting the fragmentation, but the fragmentation have been yielded from the present financial system, which is corrupted, which is unfair, which is imposing restriction on those who are in need by imposing them more, not only political, but cultural and social tendency. This is my conclusion. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Laeed Zaghlami, for this presentation, for your reflection on the Russian election. And you've raised a number of important issues. And you are talking, for example, about Western values and that are not globally representative. But also you are talking about the desire to restore peace amongst the people, amongst Russians. And I'm sure that all these and many others will also beg some questions. And I would like now to ask people to make their own contributions. And for me, if you could probably, to begin with, maybe just mention a few of these Western values which you think that are not representative in our world today. And yeah, maybe I just will ask one question at a time.
You want me to ask the answer question?
Yeah, if you could, or somebody else, of course, can also join in our conversation.
I told you, George, the pertinent example of double standard way of imposing is what is happening in Gaza, and from the rest of the world, from I would say the public opinion in the Muslim and the Arab countries are really amazed and are frustrated by the attitude of the Western and particularly USA. Let me explain rightly and maybe overtly. 2 few weeks ago, Algerian diplomacy has secured a resolution calling for ceasefire, although USA abstained. But on the ground, this far has not been observed by Israel. More than that, USA continue to pour arms to Israel. What we call that? Is it what we call that? Do you call that? I mean, this is another help to another support to Israel in its genocidal attack on human being and on deprived people in Gaza. I don't know what's the mind. This is a shame for the humanity. That's what I want to say. This is just a pertinent example of how the West are acting. The same applies to different parts of the world where we see the West wants by hook or by crook to impose their rules. That does not work anymore. That's why the fight now is between the West and the rest of the world. And of course, the emergence of China, of Russia is good for the peaceful solution and for the stability of the world. If we want to avoid another third world war.
Yeah, thank you, Laeed. Richard, if you may ask your question.
Hello, good afternoon to you.
Afternoon.
Yeah, I'm looking at what is happening within Israel, between Israel and Gaza, and then Ukraine and Russia. I am looking at them as comparatively to what happens between children. You realize that when two children are fighting, one without support, in actual fact, it becomes, or he becomes vulnerable, and what he would ask would be to be saved. So I see Ukraine being supported as being saved, because the anger of Russia could or can destroy the entire country, and they need actually support. And then that of the Israel and Gaza. That place has a long-term conflict that they should have resolved. Those hostages, I believe that there have been many times advised as to them being freed, but would fall on deaf ears. So Israel really need support to not to destroy Palestine or Palestinians, but at least to calm them down, and then at the end peace restored. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. I can also see that Janet has raised her hand. Please, Janet, you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate, thank you, George. I appreciate, Professor Laeed, the opportunity to hear your point of view, and being from what we say, the People's Republic of New York City, and being a peace scholar, yes, I think that there are two visible sides to every conflict. So as a peace scholar, I see that Ukraine and Russia are fighting by any means necessary in order to win. In Gaza, Hamas and Israel are fighting by any means necessary to win. And that means that many people of the People's Republics of Ukraine, Russia, Gaza, and Israel, and are losing their lives, losing their hospitals and all they've built up, their culture. And we in the world, the rest of us observers, some more active and others, are struggling. Okay, that's my point of view from way over here. And I would like to hear more about the application of your point of view to Africa. Like, how is this as your assertion of the values of the West are failing and losing, and then how does that apply to Africa, and what are you where do you hold your hopes for the future of Africa? Thank you.
Yeah, you may reply, of course, respond anytime, Prof.
Okay,
Zaghlami.
John. I think, yes, thank you, Mrs. Janet, for your remarks. Well, just to remind you, in our team, we have someone from the USA, actually, and his name is Dan Kolvich or something like that. Anyhow, he's a peace activist and scholar from university in Atlanta, I think. Well, I would say Africa has now reached some kind of maturity. We have to accept that. Now, if I mentioned the result of the election in Senegal, which had shown the election of a new gentleman, 41 or 45, 44 years old. He was few days ago in jail. So there is a big fight now coming in and on in Africa within the old leadership and the new energy. So what we want from West countries and from sincere and reliable people from the West, we want them just moral and political support. So many countries in Africa have been one way or the other connected, rightly or wrongly, with former colonies. French, of course, Spain in the case of Western Sahara, Great Britain, Germany, Italy, Netherlands, and so forth. So all these countries which colonized Africa in the last century, they try always to somehow maintain this relation. I think, okay, it's good. I'm not being rude or cynical again. What I want to know, I want from my let's take the example of Algeria, for instance. We were under colonization for 132 years, and we got the independence after 7 years and a half of fighting, and we paid the price. What we need now from France or elsewhere, we need equal and equitable treatment. We don't want to be despised or belittled from the West. The West should now, and France in the case of Algeria and France, should speak face to face on equal base, on respect base, on respectful attitude, and more than that, if we want to make business, okay, go ahead, we make business, but on a win-win approach. Algeria advocated cooperation with. We had already, I would say, there was an accord between Algeria and the European Union, but unfortunately, that accord of partnership did not help Algeria. On the contrary, the 27 countries, and particularly France, have taken all the monopoly, all the interest of Algeria, and we left deprived of everything. You cannot continue to work with a partner with people, with countries which are abusing and exploiting your health wealth. That's why we are open to Russia, well, it's our right to Russia, to Germany, I would say to China, to Turkey, and all over the country, as well as long as they respect our wishes and they do not interfere. I give you another example in the case of Algeria and the European Union. We brokered an agreement between Algeria and the European Union. But as I said, economically, it was not in our favor. More than that, the European Parliament continued the last few months criticizing, insulting, denigrating what we do, interfering in our relation and our interests. So that cannot continue.
All right. Thank you so much, Laeed. Any other comment or observation or question? Yes, Richard. Or is that the old hand? But anyway, I think if I can go back to what I said at the beginning, the desire, because what you said, Laeed, that you can see the desire to restore peace amongst Russians, right? And maybe we need some kind of clarification, maybe some kind of explanation, how you saw this kind of desire. For example, we know that Russia is now at war with Ukraine. So are these people saying we want now to stop the war with Ukraine so that peace can be restored in Russia and in Ukraine and in the rest of the world? Why are you saying that there is this kind of desire to restore peace amongst the people?
Well, of course, we like it or not, in the end of the day, we cannot continue endlessly fighting each other. I have to, in the case of Russia and the Ukraine war, I am really supportive of what the American scholar John Mishmeyer said. I'm realistic as him. So we have to know why what are the reasons behind this war. And of course, we like it or not, Russia stick to the Minsk Accord, but unfortunately, Ukrainian side, and with the support and of NATO government, NATO, I would say interference, they breached that one. But I understand the Russian security concerns. We cannot have NATO just in your border. But anyhow, I don't interfere anymore. But I would like, because now we like it or no, I went to the place, I went to the ground, I saw what happened in the Kherson region, and I spoke to people who were before 22 were part of Ukraine. Now they are enjoying themselves to be democratically in the referendum, to be democratically supportive. And I spoke to ladies, girls, people. They are very happy to be a member now, to be now under the part of the Russian Federation. In other words, they want to have their own security. You cannot decide on their place. Of course, I understand that the Western media have been bombarding them with a lot of things and a lot of, but I would say now the fact that we have to face the reality. The reality is that those countries, those republics, as I said, whether it's I would say Donetsk or Lugansk, and of course Kherson and the region of Kherson and Zaporizhia are now fully integrated within the Russian Federation. So now, and there are some rumors, some rumors about the possibility of having to reach a ceasefire, which admit that we have to talk a ceasefire on the basis of 22 February 22. So let's give a chance. Let's give a chance to the peace. That's what I want to know. I don't want to interfere, but the practicality, the will, the need for peace are now available. You cannot deny that people willingness to be Russian, even though they were beforehand Ukrainian. But so far we have to face the reality. The reality is now, if we don't stop it now, for sure, if the West continue and NATO continue to pour arms in Ukraine, for sure, as already warned President Putin, he will use nuclear war. He will nuclear armament. I don't want that our world will be affected by this. So we should bring about people with common sense, with wisdom, with a sense of responsibility, and admit that there is always a possibility for peace.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Laeed. And now, Donna Pido, please, you're welcome.
Yeah, I'm sorry, my attention must have wandered. And apparently I have missed the part where Laeed told us which Western values the rest of the world is now opposing or abandoning. Can you repeat that, please?
Well, one of the Western values is they want to impose the way you are voting. dictating the election. I don't. That's exactly and the good example of rejection of Western values in terms of election is what happened in Senegal. Senegal, the gentleman who was just sworn in was few weeks ago in jail because those who are in power in Dakar, they have responding to well, they are actually implementing some I would say instruction from particularly Western and particularly France, because France has a lot of intervention and a lot of interference in that country, and this is facts. So let's what I don't want that Russian French or Western are interfering. So it happened. I was reading just a document a few weeks in Chad. In Chad, for instance, Idris Deby, who now was assassinated, when he was elected, before he was elected, he got the advice from the French envoy in N'Djamena. Can you see? So, in other words, in many places, at many times, I think some of, and I'm not insulting anyone. So many African who were elected, they have been elected with the approval of Western with the Western leaders, Western approval. That's why I think in this case, the question of election, it has to be sovereign. We cannot dictate. What we know, we have only to secure the will and the willingness and the commitment, and we have to secure the condition for a fair and honest election. What I've seen myself, I don't bother what is going on out before, after. What I have seen by my own eyes in Kherson region, people were in very gently manner cast their doubt, their vote, and they did in very I would say democratic and personal way. So why should we have to discuss why should we have to cast doubt on their vote? Why should we have to interfere? So leave it for them, and they have to decide. We don't have to interfere. There is no I would say standard rules to impose on election all over the world, and of course it shouldn't be a Western one.
Thanks,
What's
Laeed.
the value you're talking about? You haven't described a value. You've described some events. What's the value?
I explained to you, madam. I told you the value is a question of integrity, of honesty, of people expressing their own view. This is what we should leave them decide by their own selves. Because when the value of Western values between brackets are honesty, are integrity, are transparency, and all these values are respected, but you have to accept according to the specificity and the particularity of the context in which we are living, whether in Algeria or in Senegal or elsewhere. But unfortunately, yes, go ahead.
All right, now let's listen to Yan. Yan Z, you are welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, I just changed my name. I also have a Swahili name called Almasi. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. Hi, Professor Laeed.
Hello.
Hi. Yeah. I'm recently engaged in a project about the terrorism and the global selection. As we know, the 2024 is the year of global selection, and Russia just started its presidential election. But also we know at the same time Russia just suffered from the terrorist attacks, and I noticed that according to the global terrorism index, its index ranks 35 around the world. So my first question is that I'm curious about, is there some relationship between the Russia's presidential the Russia's election and the terrorist attack? That's my first question. And my second question is, let's move on to Africa, because actually I'm also engaged in African studies. And as we know, like nowadays, like for example, the United States, Russia, France, and as well as China, like big countries are focusing on more on Africa. So For example, like in East Africa, Russia and China, we established a very good and friendly relationship with Tanzania. So I'm wondering that how can big countries collaborate peacefully to contribute to the development of African, for example, East African, and make win-win instead of zero-sum games. So thank you.
Thank you, Yon. Thank you for the question. Well, for sure, the election of President Putin by 87.26% is a slap in the face of those who doubt of his popularity. And I think I'm not defending him as a person. You have to know that. I came from Algeria, which, of course, fought fiercely about terrorism, and we suffered for 10 years. And unfortunately, why 10 years? Because there was a lot of interference from Western countries, i.e. France. We have to make it. So in the case of what happened it was a response of those who are against Putin's coming to power by, of course, orchestrating a terrorist attack. And I think I'm not prejudicing making any prejudice over who made it, but there is some kind of I can smell something about it. War between Russia and Ukraine, as well as the election of president. So it was a response for those who do not want Russia to have a powerful government, powerful, I would say, statesman. And of course, this is the case applies. Okay, we spoke about ISIS in Khorasan, but this is another aspect. But what I want to say, I'm sure terrorism, it's a global phenomenon. When Algeria suffered on its own, nobody cared about it. But we did it in our own way and our term. Now we are very happy and pleased and, of course, sovereign in our country. Nobody helped us. Now we advocate what we call a global forum for terrorism, against terrorism. And I think many countries like USA, Germany, and Canada are part of this. I think time has come that we don't have to fight. Whether maybe to fight what is happening by using terrorist attack. Okay, if you are not happy with the election, the outcome of election in Russia, why do you have to use this barbaric means? Why don't you speak? Why don't you put diplomatic, political, and so forth pressure? So this is very important. We cannot respond violence by violence. Well, there is no violence, as a matter of fact, in Russia, but those who are using it, they only want to abstract and to make it difficult for the president. Now, regarding the second question, I'm really amazed of the cynical attitude and the paradoxical attitude of Western countries. I explain. You mentioned that China and investing in Tanzania. I don't think that China has come all the way to Tanzania to invade or to exploit or to dominate. No, whether it's China or Turkey or Russia, all these countries have not been known for colonialist heritage compared to France, Germany, of course, Great Britain, and so forth. So when we have about 5,000 soldiers in what we call serval operation in the Sahel, nobody complain or nobody start to protest. But when we have these people, I don't know how many, less than 1,000 from Wagner, a lot of massacre. So we should be practical. I think Africa has reached a sense of maturity of interest. They are open to all countries, whether they are former colonial or new one. And I think please, for God's sake, let's the African Union decide, African people and African countries decide for their own interests. They are mature enough, and they knew their rules, they knew their needs, they knew how to salvaguard their dignity. Well, of course, I understand there are some leaders who are one way or the other at the hands of Western people, but we should live, if we want to survive, if we want to get a good cooperation between Africa and Europe, we should work on a win-win based on the respected attitude. That's what's most important. Of course, Ethiopia is another case where Russia and China have been invested. I know there are so many projects all over Africa. So it is not the monopoly of Russia or China, but the problem is that this is the big issue. I know the scheme of the American scheme of Prosper Africa. Okay, they are pouring money, but they do it on the basis of political motivation, on the basis of cultural condition. This should not continue, because it's a form of blackmailing. And I remembered last year when there was this program or this meeting between President Joe Biden and Africa in this Prosper. Some countries are excluded because why? Because they are not respecting what he called human rights and so forth. I won't say that, but this rhetoric, this way of approaching should not continue. It's not productive.
All right, the win-win situation. Maybe that's what is also mentioned by meant by the theory of small wins. Maybe somebody will talk about this one, the theory of small wins by Howard Richards. Now, Mary Ellen, please, you are welcome. Please unmute your microphone.
There, hit the wrong button.
All right.
Yeah, one of the I think the issues of talking past, as I think that the problems with much of the West is not so much a problems with the values, but the failures to live up to those values. And I think that most of those actions we have heard are directly in conflict with the values that the West espouses but doesn't necessarily act upon. And I also doubt that Africa's solution is to look to Russia and China, other great powers. I've always been called back to an aphorism of a scholar of the mid-20th century, Bernard Brodie, the late Bernard Brodie, who used to say, view all great powers with circumspection. The fact that the West isn't doing, and major Western powers aren't doing things the way we would like them, doesn't mean that their antagonists are the ones who will save us. It's finding the mechanisms within Africa to support those values with which we agree, and resist those who would violate those values wherever they are. That is going to be our savior.
Thank you so much, Mary Ellen, for that wonderful comment. You want to respond to that, Prof. Laeed,
yes,
Zaghlami?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Mari. You are right. Of course, we are not living in our own island. Africa does not live in it's in our island. We need cooperation. There are what we call universal values, but also there are specific values. You have to understand. I'm take the example of Algeria. Algeria is a Muslim country. So obviously we cannot accept some of the values they want to impose in terms of sexual freedom or any other kind of thing. So this is I think at the base of this misunderstanding and this I would say acrimony is because we don't listen to each other. We do not communicate and we do not respect each other. That's basically what we need. If we speak to each other, if we respect each other, we can reach, as you mentioned this, we can set up this kind of mechanism which will be mutually applied by each one. But to impose, to have this despising attitude on the other, this does not work anymore, because Africa has now recovered its independence and we cannot deal with this attitude of neglecting, of despising, of belittling other. So that's why every country in the world, every country in Africa has its own dignity and its own, of course, rich, I would say, liberty. But we should, if we want to help them, of course you can help, but do it in mutual interest. but not to blackmailing or to condition this and that. That's unfortunately what is happening. As I mentioned, this question of Africa Prosper, the scheme advocated by USA, of course, they are giving money against some kind of compromission. That does not should not work. If we want to promote real, genuine democracy, freedom of the press, freedom of expression, civil human rights, and so forth, it can be done, but as long as we should respect. And I feel very sorry to say that, because when I am seeing the massacre and the carnage and genocide in Gaza, I don't feel that there is really a real intention to prosper. I don't think this is a real democratic value, Western welcomed values.
Thank you. Sean, please, and then we'll go to Odoch Pido and then Richard. Sean, please, you're welcome.
Oh, thanks very much, George. And thank you, Professor. Just one comment, a general comment and sort of a question. On democracy, I mean, and elections, there's no such thing as a perfect system. And even the Greeks, when they invented the idea, said it was some of the best ways would be lottery, not have citizens enter their name in a lottery to get elected. That was one of the fairest ways, because if you look at the different products of the systems in the USA or in India, democracy, those elections in democratic countries have a lot to be desired. That's just a general comment. And I'm just wondering if the professor could say something about the attitude in Russia at the moment to the war in Ukraine. You know, here in Europe, I would be fairly pessimistic about our politicians opening any sort of negotiation. They just seem to want to continue that war. So I'm just wondering, what's the feeling in Russia generally that he got when he was there? Thanks very much.
Thank you, Shane. Very much appreciated your comments. Actually, let me first of all talking about election. Election is not the only segment of democracy. It's part of the component, you understand? So don't expect everything from election. But I was student in Britain 1980s with the dictatorial democracy of Margaret Thatcher. He stayed in power for almost 13 years, and she wants to continue if there was not at least a coup d'etat from its own conservative party. The same applies to Angela Merkel. She was in power for almost 14 years. So that's to say, democracy, it's a lot of things. Democracy is freedom, it's election, it's justice, etc., jobs, etc. Now I come to your question. I think because this is my perception of Russian people talking about it. I think they feel that they have to get behind their president, and they knew that Russia is under threat from Western countries after being dismantled during the Soviet Union era. Of course, it's like a war of empire now, between the British Empire, the Russian Empire, the American, the French Empire, and so forth. So it's a question of how to dominate the world. But I think Russian people, they elected a very popular person, because he gives them this security, this feeling of security, this feeling of strength. And I have to admit, I never been to Russia. I stopped over years ago. But when I stayed in Moscow, I saw a great level of democracy, of discretion, of strength. The country is the Moscow city is very clean, very tidy. People are very hardworking, very, I would say, respectful. And I think I saw this is what makes Russia strong. And of course, they are blaming Western for trying to dismantle this integrity. Russia has its own ambition. It's a big country, and I think that's why instead of as because years ago there was this Euro-Asia dialogue, but unfortunately, politicians are fiddling in this, and now things are getting out of hand, and now we are in this war. But frankly speaking, I would say that Russian people in general are supporting their leader because they seen him as the savior of the democracy, of the peace and security in their own country.
All right, thank you. Odo Chipido, please go ahead. Nice to see you.
Thank you, George. Thank you. I'm glad to be here. And I say hello to all my colleagues who are attending this meeting today. Professor, I wanted to ask a question. And I would prefer that you don't answer it if you feel it is out of the context, out of the context of your address. My understanding is that you are addressing us on the elections in Russia and your experiences in that election. And perhaps you wanted to do a little bit more reflection to indicate what it would mean for us here in Africa. But you said something that makes me feel like asking a question. In the Middle East, my understanding is that Israel was attacked, and what is going on is a response to that attack. Then this is my question. I believe that there was a reason for the attack. Do you really think that stopping the war would therefore undermine, in fact, eradicate the reason why the attack took place in the first case? That's my question. So please don't answer, because your address was in respect to China, to Russia, and I'm asking a question in respect to Middle East, so you can decline answering it.
Well, thank you for those. Well, of course, as I said earlier, I was excited to be part of this international observer and see by myself on the ground, on the field, how people in Russia, in the region, Kherson region, reacting during that election. So we have to accept, we have to be empathetic to them. We have to understand. But of course, when I read the whole Western media contesting and challenging the results, even though before the election started, they have already made their own statement. I don't think this is helpful for the whole world. We should now come to the idea that we should listen to each other, and we should not impose any sanction over there. We should not pretend to be democratic, and at the same time you are breaching these values. And as you may, I feel very sorry myself for what is happening in Gaza, because they are brother and sister like me. They are from Muslim and Arab countries. Of course, as I'm a human being beforehand, and of course I'm supporting of African dignity and African sovereignty and independence. So you cannot, you should ask yourself, who is behind this mess that the world is now witnessing? Of course, I understand it has to be the military and the industrial complex who it has to sell its own arms all over the world. That's exactly who is behind this mess all over the world. If we stop for one day this, we can come to, as George already said, a peaceful solution in the world. The world is badly in need of solution, is badly in need of peace and peace living and the Pacific solution all over the world. If we just get people who are wise enough to come to the table and discuss and negotiate and speak face to face and listen to each other, that's what we should do. And that unfortunately, that's what is missing. We are living with a lot of prejudice, with a lot of stigmatization all over the world. We are despising each other. We are neglecting others. We are sidelining people. That's why people feel in disarray and feel unhappy, and they have to react violently. That's it. And because we are advocating double standard in our way of dealing and in our way of approaching things.
Wonderful. Richard, you wanted to ask or say something. Are you still?
Yeah. So I wanted to bring our mind to this.
Please go ahead, Richard.
Is frozen,
It seems that is right.
Yeah. People, is it okay? Hello?
Yes, please go ahead.
Can you hear me well?
Yes.
And then when you take Africa, for example, we had our forefathers, migrating to the Western and then the Asian countries. And they've lived there with a family trait, you see, so with which they still believe they come from Africa. And for that matter, when there is a decision with us here, they have a mouthpiece to say something. I believe they have known much better and higher. And then when it comes to the issues with kinship, governance, and other democracies, they have higher say. But my little advice to politicians is that they should note that they are entities. So the right answers they give to a particular imposition or a particular question before them give them the strength to subdue other challenges that comes upon. So thank you.
Thanks, Richard. Janet, please. All right.
I have to say that I really value this seminar, because here, of course, we're not voting, we're not making policy decisions, we're not deliberating on them. Nevertheless, we are expressing all different views and asking questions from our different perspectives. And people, I just want to highlight Peter Boris's question about, I'm just going to pick a little bit out of I'm change it a bit. What are the role of transnational corporations? And let me move to the idea of economies. Is it these things also, like you said, Professor Laeed, the military industrial complex, the need to use weapons in order to promote those industries from which many countries, including my own, really benefit. At least the governmental level benefits. And so I want to ask you, but I also really hear what you're saying about we have to listen to each other. We have to understand each other's values. A Muslim country of this, different. I hear your experience of having been colonized and brutalized in that colonization, and how you've come out of that in the democratic Algeria, a more liberated country. So my question is, what you were talking to the people in Russia and you got a very good feeling, but I'm wondering what kind of deliberation you heard, what kind of were people able to express contradictory views? Did people have alternative proposals that they were hoping would be promoted? I'm wondering if that level of democratic action and participation was something you witnessed in your visit.
Thank you very much, Janet. Exactly, you are quite right. I am talking in a context of a war. I went there to Russia, and of course, there is a war between Russia and Ukraine, and people are aware of that. But what is their main concern is, of course, peace, security, good jobs, good life, and that's most important. They sacrifice some democratic values because for their own security, you have to make some kind of compromise, Mrs. Janet. That's exactly what we say. We witnessed the same process in Algeria. In Algeria, we went we fought terrorism for 10 years, and we begged God to have only just a few minutes, few hours, few days of peace and security. So if we went through this situation of war and violence and so forth, you beg God to have security. Democracy, as you said, came later because people are hungry. They cannot feed themselves. People want to have jobs. So there are some kind of priority in the life. Of course, when you have good, then when you have enough of this, and you can ask for democracy, you can for speech, but overall there are some immediate needs that you should meet, you should have, and this is exactly how I saw. Security, I think I would say, is the first element of their needs. That's why they don't care about whether there is a liberty or not. They do care of the security of their own country. Afterwards, they can think they can introduce some kind of diversity and, as you said, deliberation, dialogue. But I saw people were happy, were excited, and pleased, and consequently they are opting out. They are using outing in the theater, cinema, and so forth. So I saw a well-organized country, very easygoing in the huge. I was amazed by the huge boulevard avenue of Moscow. It's about 100, 200. So you feel at ease. You don't need democracy because you have all the space in front of you. That's exactly, and you have this feeling I was amazed by the quality of traffic light. Everything is done in very perfect way. So you feel this country is well organized. That's what they want. Respect of the law and order. That's main issue. Then comes later democracy and free speech and so forth.
Do I understand you? I just want to follow up that order equals democracy. Is that what you're saying? I think I don't understand the value of a wide boulevard and the traffic going in order.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say, it reminds me of Mussolini made the trains run on time. I'm confused. Please explain a bit more.
Well,
thank you.
Well, yes, you referred to Mussolini. I'm referring to my own country, Algeria. So, that's exactly why it's not the same reference and the same perspective. What I want to say, law and order and the law, within the law. So we have to respect each other. There is kind of discipline. There is kind of rigor. That's what I want to say. Now, democracy, as I said to you, it has to be judged and measured according to each country, to each the level of integration. Poor people cannot ask for democracy, Mrs. Janet. They need, first of all, food. They need to fill their stomach. Then when you have the stomach full, you have the mind which can sing, as we say in Algeria. So there are some priority in the life of people in the whole country. If you are hungry, if you are poor person, what democracy can bring to you? Nothing, just speechifying. That's what we have witnessed in Algeria, and in the end of the day, we get into trouble. So what we need to fix up our situation according to our immediate needs, and then afterwards, democracy, freedom, and speech will be introduced gradually and in accordance and in harmony with our own culture and our understanding. Of course,
right,
we cannot deny that we want to have democracy and freedom. But as already you have fulfilled your wishes of being having secured a good job and of course apartment and a car, etc.
Thanks, Laeed. Donna, you're welcome.
Yeah, while you're introducing freedom of speech and all those good things, gradually, kindly do not accept any money from the United States of America. And I'm speaking to you as an American taxpayer. And I object. By the way, Janet, I think you and I are both constituents of Adriano Espaillat, who I love. Is he good? Or you know something I don't know?
You love him? He's my neighbor. You love him?
Yeah,
He's
the American Congress of elected representatives allocates money for foreign countries on the basis of projects that they're going to do that will uphold the recipient country and the donor country. So if you think it's okay to introduce freedom of speech and other human rights slowly in a country, do not accept money from my government because I'm paying that money. You can't have it.
Well, first of all, Algeria has not accepted any money from USA to start
But you're
with.
ripping off the French or whoever else is giving you
No,
money.
no, please,
Respect their values.
You
don't have any of your
misunderstand
own.
me.
Excuse me, I
No,
better keep
don't
quiet.
misunderstand me, please. Just
No, I don't want to understand you.
I said there was a cooperation association deal between Algeria and European Union on the basis of mutual cooperation. Okay, it has to be mutual. It has to be win-win approach. Unfortunately, this process or this agreement, which was signed in 2005 until 2024, 19 years, and the European Union are exploiting our money, our riches, our wealth, and so forth. They are putting their product in Algeria. On the counterpart, Algeria has gone just about 10 or 20% only. This is not fair. Shouldn't be. What I am telling you, okay, we don't ask money, we ask for partnership and cooperation and not assistance. We are not incapacitated people. We want just, if we want to make business with Algeria, okay, you are welcome, but it has to be done on equal based on mutual respect. And we don't expect any lesson in terms of democracy or freedom, because we have our own understanding of freedom. When we went to war, when we were under terrorism for 10 years, nobody came to help Algeria. On the contrary, so many Western countries have offered shelter to terrorists, and they were making their campaign against Algeria, whether in USA or in Germany or in France or elsewhere. So I know the game. What I am trying to say, this is of the past. I don't want to talk. Well, if we want to start a new way of partnership cooperation, we have to respect each other. Now, if the USA is using public money, this is their business. But as I said, they are doing it by blackmailing some countries. I took the example of Prosper Africa, a scheme developed by America, but they always put some conditionality on this and that. No, Algeria is not the sort of country that obey to this kind of business of this transaction. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a Global Peace Studies for Sustainable Development in Africa, and we are discussing Russian elections today from our perspective. So African and American, Asian, so the whole world, we have got different perspectives. And this is what Professor Laeed is doing with us. We have some 15 minutes left, but I can see a question here in chat from Odo Chipido asking, will ceasefire undermine the reason for the current war and achieve long-lasting peace in the Middle East? Ceasefire.
Well, I hope so. There was, George, my friend, there was already a ceasefire a few days ago. But of course, we appreciate that somehow diplomatically, we thanks the USA for abstaining. but it was only ceasefire from your lips, not on practical term, because on the ground, USA continue to pour to send ammunition to Israel. What do you mean by ceasefire? If 2 days ago Israel has reduced it to an ocean of rubble of this hospital of Shifa. What do you say ceasefire when just 24 hours after there was an attack on this kitchen house? No, you have to. You cannot be unaware of what is going on the ground. Now, what we see, I think, like it or not, in the mid-term, in the long term, the world has to come to a solution, two-state solution in this part of the world, Palestinian state and Israel state. That's what we should, if we want to have, as you said, George, long-lasting, peaceful solution. This is the only reason. Otherwise, we continue fighting each other, and the whole world will be shattered between this and that.
Yeah, thanks, Laeed. And if I may just ask whether the results kind of surprised you, or did you expect that? You know, because in some cases, for example, in the US today, if you ask me who is going to win between these two men, it would be very difficult for me actually to say straight away, you know. But I think in Russia, it was kind of straightforward, wasn't it? A deja vu.
Yes, let me explain this problematic. I think, you know, of course, I understand that election, it should be, I mean, in the election, people should vote according to their own needs, their own understanding, and there is variety of views and opinion. Western values, Western democracy, Western way of making election, they try to give many chance, as many as possible. And that's why, overall, we can see some racist attitude. We can see some, I would say, right-wing attitude. We say in Europe, for instance, the emergence of right-wing against immigration, against Islam, against minority, and so forth. So is this democracy? If you say this democracy, I'm sorry, I cannot comply with, because what we need, we ask, country has to secure some kind of some kind of harmony, some kind of consistency, some kind of, I would say, of completeness between different facts of the society. We cannot leave even extreme, whether from the right or the wrong, to express. They are spoiling the harmony of the group. They are hurting. They are harming the country itself. So we have to have some kind of approach. I'm not denying the right of minority to speak, but it has to be within their limit representation. That's why we should understand. You cannot give people who have no, for a moment of history, give them a chance to run, and in the day they will ruin their own country. We see, as I said, in France, in Italy, in Germany, the emergence of right-wing people, and they are making a lot of racist and of discriminatory against foreigner living there. Give the example of France, of Italy, of Germany, and so forth. So likewise, what's happening in USA and elsewhere. I understand that democracy is free for all, but as I said to you, it is not the only, and election is not the only segment of it. You have to feed people. You have to make sure they have their own dignity, their own confidence, their own social and of economic security.
Thanks, Laeed. There is a long comment here from our sister Lukong Shulika. Are you there, Lukong? And would you like to explain a bit about this comment, if you can?
Hi, good day, everyone.
Hello.
So I want to thank Prof. Laeed for his presentation. And my comment is, it is quite evident that there are varying degrees of international scrutiny and critique surrounding Russia's election processes, right? So particularly concerning allegations of interference and manipulation, which is actually seen as undermining democratic processes. But when we come to think of it, that is something that is commonplace in Africa. Why? Because electoral interference and manipulations in Africa are often perceived as commonplace and met with little contestation generally. So when I look at these situations or these two contexts, then my question is, what can he say about their impact on the broader global dialogue on democracy and governance? And Prof. Laeed, do you think that there is really a potential for collaboration between African nations and the global community to foster greater transparency and fairness in electoral processes worldwide? And as it stands, when we look at the African continent, Africa is already confronted with so many challenges of its own, and we question the future of democracy in Africa generally. So do you really think as Africans, we should really concern ourselves with the politics of the Western world, given that they often have this hidden agenda towards Africa? So as you presented and as questions have been asked, those are the thoughts that are actually going on in my mind. I don't know if you can speak to those. Thank you.
Thank you, Lukong, for your long comment. Of course, I understand. I share some of your concern as well as some of your views and values. What I want just to say, no, it's like I would say an illusion to think that there will be a global dialogue. There will not be. Why? Because the institution that should be doing that, General Assembly, United Nations system, the other international institution, financial institution, IMF, World Bank, and so forth, have not been successful in their mission, and therefore, okay, what we have to do, we have to be modest and to adapt your situation to local situation, to regional and to continental, but overall to aspire to a global moderate dialogue. It's just nonsensical because we don't have the same aims, we don't have the same intention, and the world is getting so fragmented, as the lady from IMF, Christina Georgieva, said it, because of the greedy way of approaching the problem, because they always impose on you. I give you the example of IMF. IMF has been so critical to Tunisia just to give them, I don't know whether about $1 or $2 billion, but they have been so generous to Ukraine. You cannot do that. You cannot do that. If you want to give money to countries, you have to do it on equal basis and not for political motivation. So people are witnessing, and thanks to the technology, thanks to internet, thanks to social media, now are making things very transparent and very clear. So, and more than that, when it comes to election, now we have this question of election fake election and the interference from different parts, cyber security and so forth. So I would say each country has to consider its own to solve its own problem by its own self, by its standard, and of course we have to get people well educated, well informed, and that's what we need. Then we can aspire. We can aspire to a global village, which is technically possible, but politically, culturally, economically is not possible, at least for my lifetime.
Well put, Laeed. Thank you so much. Maybe one last comment or question. Thumbs up from Lukong and Eliseo. So anybody with a comment or final question as we are drawing close to
May I, Professor
end?
George?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Yes, nice to hear from you.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, my colleagues over here and Professor Laeed for such a wonderful session. Sir, one thing that you have already discussed, that global situation regarding terrorism and peace and democracy, very well covered, topic over there. But can we miss out two important things? Number one, the peace restored outside, or as you call that military discipline and other things, that may sometimes make us disciplined. But where is the peace? The peace is within us. I think that we need to monitor first, as you have also stated, that the peace is the mental state, and that mental state need to be taken care of. Outside democratic forces or military forces may control the situation for the time being. So that's why, as you have already referred, and about the human values also, that where we need to focus first. We need to focus first on our well-being of our mental state, that may be having so many factors outside, as you have discussed very well. And at the same time, what is the peace solution that African development needs at this critical juncture? So that has already been discussed well. I am not pointing out those, but we need to think, I think, little bit time about that. If the outside, the environment is not at peace, we cannot be at peace. But at the same time, our internal peace, if it is disturbed somehow, outside peace situation won't be able to give or pacify our internal situation. So I think we need to consider that also side by side. Thank you, Professor Laeed, for such a wonderful session once again.
Thank you too. Of course, you have first of all a peace of mind. If you are having a peace
Yes.
of mind, if you are okay within yourself, for sure you will be flourishing, you will be investing, you will be sowing only element of peace and security and good for everyone. But if you are within yourself in trouble, how can you expect, how can you look for something peaceful if you are not yourself in peace with your own self? And I think as myself, as a Muslim, and of course, I don't want you to join me, but I wish if you could, especially in this fasting month of Ramadan, we are very in peace, and of course, because our religion is fundamentally a religion of peace and of mind. You have to be in harmony with yourself and with God and with your own people and with our environment. So we have to follow some kind of rules and to obey some kind of values. And of course, we cannot expect people to interfere in your that. But as thank you very much. You put it rightly. First of all, we have to secure peace of your mind within yourself before trying to spreading out here and there.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure.
Yeah, right. Thank you so much. Now I can see Eliseo has raised his hand. You could please ask your question or make your final comment, and also thank Professor Laeed also on our behalf. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. George, for the opportunity to talk. And I would like also to acknowledge Professor Laeed for this very wonderful talk and very challenging topic. First of all, I will pass a remark which I wanted to pass. I want to have a question, but maybe at the end, if Professor Laeed wants to intervene, he may, although I was given this opportunity to close on behalf of the group. My concern, what I wanted to put across is that we have been looking at elections in this talk, and maybe elections are one way of expressing democracy. It is unfortunate that in most of our countries, elections have not been effectively held, but that does not remove the legacy that democracy has brought in the world or in many countries. Some countries have not been effective in implementing it or its ideals, but I believe some people have been effective to implement it, and all of us, we are a product of the progress that democracy has brought in the world. It is unfortunate for those who have not managed to live upon the ideals of democracy. We don't know how many people are happy in Western countries, how many people are happy in Russia, how many people are happy in America, but we are sure that democracy has benefited many of the countries. What I could say is that maybe as Africa, since one of the part of the discussion was comparing Russia and Africa is one of the countries which has not been effective in implementing democracy. So I think that the Western world has shown us its philosophy. Democracy has been built from its foundations from far before, from the Greek and maybe the Romans, and it has shown that it is a Western culture, and they will not change it because of any African country or any Middle Eastern country which is not effective in implementing its ideals. But Western countries have been quite effective in trying to adjust to it and effect it every time. So we are the ones who have to change. We have to look at our models and change them so that we can build a better world. For example, the philosophical tradition has been a project from the Western countries. It has been their civilization. They have built it to bring their well-being. So, like for example, Africans, we have also our philosophy, which is Ubuntu. We were supposed to also make it our project, build it, adjust it, make it suitable to us, to our philosophy, to our history, and to our way, so that the world can see that Ubuntu, it is also our legacy. So I think it is up to any of the continents. The Western has shown their history, their legacy. It is up to Africa, up to the Middle East, up to any other world to also show what is their legacy and how good is it to bring happiness for their people. So once again, I don't know if Professor Laeed wants to say something, but I would like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. George for your wise work, to thank all the people who have intervened for this discussion, and also to thank the MAMA platform for providing this platform for web discussion. And thank you all. Thank you all.
Just one few words. Thank you very much for your resume, Elisio. It's very reflecting what I am saying. Of course, we are African. We share the same concerns as well as the same values. Take care. Thank you for all people and friends from Algeria, from Africa, and from USA, and from all the world. And we look forward for more peaceful, fairer, and just world all over the world. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. George. I rest the case in you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. See you next week.
You have the link. You have the link of two video as well as my presentation. All the best. Feel free to upload it. Thank you.
Yeah, I've uploaded mine now. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Janet. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
We have to favor human contacts, regardless of politics. That's exactly what we should do.
It's amazing to be in contact with you and everyone who commented. Thank you, George.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Professor. Thank you,
human being. That's most important.
Yeah.
Thank you. All the best. Also.
Yes, thank you.
Be the spirit of
Bye-bye.
Peter. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
All the best.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks, George, for the